truth is the most convincing story that maps onto reality, and that's why the central narrative is falling apart.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
We must see the central narrative for the fiction that it is. We are Americans.
While elections are sometimes messy, this was a secure election.
The founders began the fight for human liberty and self-governance, and it's up to us to finish the job.
I'll tell you what, we are in a truth emergency right now.
This is the end game.
Immensely seductive. Quite sure he's right. Obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Say it! Say it!
All right, I'll say it.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
All right. It is Monday, January 20th, 2025, the 1,461st day of dystopia, or at least it was to begin the morning. And now I guess it's the first day of the golden age of America, or so Donald Trump says in his inauguration address today. So I know a lot of you have probably been following the inauguration, the rituals, the ceremonies, the pomp and circumstance, the celebration of the return of Donald Trump in his public recognition of his presidency, that there's much to celebrate there. And of course, running right alongside that is an equal portion of the same shit show we've been watching for the last 4 years. And so I guess these things will just continue running concurrent for a little while. And we'll get into all the inauguration stuff in just a little bit. But man, some fun things happen while I'm gone for 3 days. I did a show last week on Thursday instead of Friday. Did not do a show Friday. Missed some really fun stuff. Joe Biden, he was having a blast, making me laugh, hard as can be. Let's begin with our boy Blue on Friday afternoon. I was just overwhelmed with pride and emotion over this part of the show. So let's start right there. What a treasure he is. Here we go.
Just over 100 years ago, a pioneering group of women proposed the Equal Rights Amendment to enshrine the principles of gender equality in our Constitution. Throughout my career, I've been clear. No one should be discriminated against based on their sex. And in order for the amendment to be ratified, it requires 3/4 of the states to ratify it. That benchmark was passed when Virginia ratified the ERA a few years ago. Today, I affirm the Equal Rights Amendment to have cleared all the necessary hurdles to be added to the U.S. Constitution now. The Equal Rights Amendment is the law of the land now. It's the 28th Amendment to the Constitution now. I consulted dozens of constitutional scholars to make sure that it was all within the power to do this. And the fact is, we did.
I consulted dozens of constitutional lawyers to make sure that we were within the bounds of the law to do this. And as a matter of fact, we did. I think that was basically what he said there. So Joe Biden declared a constitutional amendment. And the funny thing is that constitutional amendment, upon its declaration of by Joe Biden, the fake president, as just the law of the land now, is equally as valid as amendments 11 through 27. They should all just be scrapped and wiped away for their total illegitimacy, much like the 28th Amendment that Joe Biden just pronounced. Because this is such a subject that is so near and dear to my heart, I want to spend a few minutes on this, despite its long-term irrelevance, because it does have meaning in the short term, and it is critical to understand what we've been talking about over the last few weeks with these constitutional amendments, with the 14th Amendment in particular. We're getting a perfect view right here in real time. The optics are available right now. People went along with it as though it was real. So we can now compare this event under our boy Blue, the fake president Joe Biden, to the problems with our past illegitimate and totally unconstitutional amendments that are nonetheless treated as though they are the law of the land by courts. They form precedent based on those amendments, and then it just becomes de facto law of the land, despite it not being any kind of law whatsoever. And so we've got now a rich, nearly 250-year history of exactly this kind of obvious, blatant usurpation that we have pretended is real. So let's keep learning about it. This is NPR, American state media. No, you're always supposed to acknowledge when you are reading Chinese state media or Russian state media. This is American state media from Friday. How about these feminists here? They mostly look like women. Keep abortion legal. ERA, yes, ERA, that's the Equal Rights Amendment. And then something back here about feminism, whatever. They've got lovely signs made. I'm sure that these were definitely sponsored by large corporations and NGOs. Can't tell what the organization name is, but it's probably right. Not worth figuring out just this moment. President Biden on Friday declared that he considers the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution the law of the land, a surprising declaration that does not have any formal force of effect, but that was celebrated by its backers in a rally in front of the National Archives. The amendment would need to be formally published or certified to come into effect by the National Archivist, Colleen Shogun, and when or if that will happen is unclear. Well, no, Joe Biden declaring it as a law doesn't make it a law, and the National Archivist cannot, by fiat, just decide to publish the law and make it a law. None of these people have the ability to make the Equal Rights Amendment the law of the land. It is not the law of the land. It will never be the law of the land. It has not been ratified by the proper number. It started 54 years ago and didn't meet its deadline, not by any stretch of the imagination. We're told that 5 years ago, it met the ratification qualification of the 38th state. But no, let's stop being ridiculous. No, we can't yet. The executive branch doesn't have a direct role in the amendment process. How about that? Joe Biden doesn't get to declare the amendment passed and active, the law of the land right now, even though he's pretending to be president. Biden is not going to order the archivist to certify and publish the ERA, the White House told reporters on a conference call. Okay. A senior administration official said the archivist's role is purely ministerial in nature, meaning that the archivist is required to publish the amendment once it is ratified. But again, it's not ratified. In response to an NPR question about whether the archivist would take any new actions, the National Archives communication staff pointed to a December statement saying that the ERA, quote, cannot be certified as part of the Constitution due to established legal, judicial, and procedural decisions, end quote. This is a long-standing position for the archivist and the National Archives. The underlying legal and procedural issues have not changed, the archive statement said. Okay, so 1970s era amendment passed by Congress would guarantee men and women equal rights under the law, but it took until 2020 for enough state legislatures to ratify it, missing a deadline set by Congress by like 52 years. ERA proponents have argued that the deadline was not binding because it was in the preamble to the amendment, rather than the text of the amendment itself, which meant that there was no deadline. It's just eventually if 38 states sign on. Of course, other states wanted to rescind their former ratifications from way back in the day. Senator Gillibrand says that all of this is to protect abortion rights. So they want to create a de facto abortion right to abortion nationally, like they used to have, they believed, and they argued under Roe v. Wade. All of this is absolutely nothing. Let us continue down, and we can get rid of that little window right here. There were many similar articles over the weekend to that effect. The Washington Post's headline, I think I have it right here. Yes. Biden declares there is now a 28th Amendment. There is not. How about that? They're almost treating Biden the way they treated Trump from that article. But a 28th Amendment has not suddenly been appended to the Constitution per Biden's decree. There are still only 27, or there are 10, or there are 0. Nor does there appear to be much hope that it will soon. It is at best a Hail Mary, and at worst, a strange political ploy that runs afoul of the rule of law Biden has spent 4 years pitching as one of his foremost concerns. And of course, the Washington Post has spent those same 4 years pitching it as one of Biden's foremost concerns, while he makes clear that it is not his concern at all. And he did more along those lines today, and we'll get there in a few minutes as well. Some, like Biden, have argued that neither of those things matters. They say the deadline doesn't really apply and that states can't legally rescind their ratifications. Ipso facto, they say it has satisfied the requirements. And that's not a totally fringe or completely crazy idea. So now they are saying, hey, maybe it does count. Even the American Bar Association has taken the position that the Equal Rights Amendment has cleared all the necessary hurdles and should be implemented. So who is the American Bar Association working for? Clearly not the American people. They're not standing on a constitutional basis there. The American Bar Association, of course, is the foreign occupying organization, the organization of the foreign occupying government, who approves whether or not people are allowed to practice law under their system. Because everybody is allowed to practice law under our system. And everybody has the right to a trial by jury as well under our system. Not that it is ever used, because, of course, we're under their system. And, you know, the hope is today that this was the final element of transferring the American government back to our system, the constitutional republic, that foundation of American government, rather than that false reality layer that exists in the bureaucratic administrative state. So the American Bar Association took the position that the Equal Rights Amendment cleared all the necessary hurdles. It passed a resolution last year stating that the deadline isn't legally binding and that states can't rescind their ratifications because neither power appears in Article 5 of the Constitution. Well, here's another power that does not appear. The American Bar Association's power to weigh in with authoritative analysis about how the Constitution works. The people perform that analysis. The people are the ultimate jury. The court of public opinion is what matters. And That amendment doesn't. In addition, the deadline appears in what's known as the resolving clause of what Congress passed, rather than the text of the amendment. The idea is that since states aren't voting on the deadline, they shouldn't be bound by it. So they only voted on the amendment, not on the deadline, is the argument. In the end, this appears mostly to be a messaging exercise intended to push an idea that had lurked beneath the surface more out into the open. After all, if this had been ratified since Virginia voted back in 2020, why not say this earlier? But it's also remarkable that a president would try to declare something that isn't clearly the law to be not just the law, but part of the most significant legal document our country has. Yeah, why would they do something like this? That, at the very least, skips over a whole lot of very valid legal issues that have never been settled. Well, sure, they're settled. The only unsettling is Joe Biden's actions as fake president, and then regime media outlets pretending that there is something important in there. Joe Biden's official statement was a brief one, and this actually appeared on the whitehouse.gov site the other day. But now, see, you can see, well, maybe you cannot see, but the URL still reads 2025-01-17 statement from President Joe Biden on the Equal Rights Amendment. And that link is now a dead link. And let me see, I meant to archive this the other day and I can't remember. Usually when I do that, I will post them as well. Did not post that one in the Telegram. So let me just see if this pulls up. First, I have to tell a machine what part of a picture resembles a crosswalk. Ah, yes. So here we do. We have it. We have the archived version. The link on whitehouse.gov is now dead, a 404. And from archive.ph, we have statement from President Joe Biden on the Equal Rights Amendment. I have supported the Equal Rights Amendment for more than 50 years, and I have long been clear that no one should be discriminated against based on their sex. We as a nation must affirm and protect women's full equality once and for all. What about trans women, Joe? On January 27th, 2020, the Commonwealth of Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. The American Bar Association has recognized that the Equal Rights Amendment has cleared all necessary hurdles to be formally added to the Constitution as a 28th Amendment. I agree with the ABA and with leading legal constitutional scholars that the Equal Rights Amendment has become part of our Constitution. Well, which Constitution? Is that your Constitution, Joe? That secret Constitution that has the equally illegitimate amendments like the 14th in it? It is long past time to recognize the will of the American people. In keeping with my oath and duty to the Constitution and country, I reaffirm what I believe and what 3/4 of the states have ratified. The 28th Amendment is the law of the land, guaranteeing all Americans equal rights and protections under the law, regardless of their sex. And again, that statement no longer appears at whitehouse.gov. So there we have it. Joe Biden declared an amendment to be valid despite its total lack of any kind of validity whatsoever. And I just want to briefly take a moment and refer back to what we were discussing a couple of weeks back in an episode. I think it was the first episode of the year. It really is illegitimate, all of it. This is the 14th Amendment. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment is what allows the federal government to invade every business transaction and private interaction, employment interactions, anything that can be done by people with one another. This is what gives the federal government the quote-unquote right to interfere in these interactions and control these interactions to make sure that no slavery is happening. This argument in the congressional record here from 1967 goes through the facts about how the 14th Amendment was never ratified. Okay? And I'll just read the summary here at the end. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Louisiana, the House of Representatives, and the Senate concurring that the legislature go on record as exposing the unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment and interposes the sovereignty of the state of Louisiana against the execution of said 14th Amendment against the state of Louisiana and its people. That the legislature of Louisiana opposes the use of the invalid 14th Amendment by the federal courts to impose further unlawful edicts and hardships on its people. That the Congress of the United States be memorialized by this legislature to repeal its unlawful joint resolution of July 28, 1868, declaring that 3/4 of the states had ratified the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, because, of course, they had not. And states at that time, much like now, had wanted to rescind their ratification after initially putting it forward. And, of course, the deadline was not met. The states then decided to rescind, and it was all overridden. The idea still being that because it happened at one time, even if the states who have the ability to rescind all authority delegated to the federal government anytime they wish, even though they desired and expressed the desire to rescind, you can still override it, these people claim, in service of a ever-expanding centralized federal government. That the legislature, this is number 4, of the states of the Union be memorialized to give serious study against the validity of the 14th Amendment and to uphold and support the Constitution of the United States, which strikes said 14th Amendment with nullity. Okay, nullity. It was never legitimate in the first place. It never could have been legitimate. And as Columbia law professor, communist, leftist, Zionist George P. Fletcher argues in his book, Our Secret Constitution, the Reconstruction era amendments were enacted in order to overthrow the constitutional republic and invert the Constitution. Republic to a democracy, a focus on the good of the individual to the good of the state, a focus on freedom and liberty to a focus on equality, totally upending the founding purpose of our nation and setting us on a path to this very day, today, hopefully the last day of that path, the constitutional state that we are now living under. I'm sorry, the communist state that we are now living under. Certainly not a constitutional state. Number 5, that copies of this resolution duly certified, together with copies of the treatise on the, quote, unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment by Judge L.H. Perez, be forwarded to the governors and secretaries of state of each state in the Union and the secretaries of the United States Senate and House of Congress, and to the Louisiana congressional delegation, a copy hereof, and to be published in the congressional record. So he lays out the argument here. The Reconstruction Acts unlawfully overthrew their existing governments, removing their lawfully constituted legislatures by military force and replacing them with rump legislatures, which carried out military orders and pretended to ratify the 14th Amendment. Okay, so I look at what Joe Biden did over the weekend, and it makes me very happy because this is the sort of thing that people can point to and say, well, it's clear that we are being shown a problem that has existed in America for quite a long time. And without this problem being properly illustrated to the country at large and these issues being discussed, we cannot unwind the other problems. And those other problems stretch back much further. So it seems to me that this is a very good entry point for people to understand that this 28th Amendment is not the first illegitimate amendment that major parts of our government, at least in an optical sense, have projected and portrayed as legitimate parts of the Constitution. All right. Let us continue. We will come back to our boy Blue very shortly. So last week, we were talking about Vivek, and we were talking about the Ohio senator who would be chosen to take the supposed Senate seat of one JD Hamel, a.k.a. JD Vance, in Ohio. So his Senate seat, now he is the vice president-elect, and now he is the very real vice president, just like he was a very real senator. All of these totally real elections, all of it totally legitimate. All of it will hold up forever in the court of public opinion, just like Joe Biden's very real presidency. JD Vance needs someone to take his Ohio Senate seat that he occupied for 2 years as the result of stolen elections in 2022. Initially, the thought would be that governor of Ohio, supposedly, Mike DeWine, would choose Vivek Ramaswamy to become a senator for who knows why. Why would Vivek Ramaswamy be up for a Senate seat anywhere for any reason? I don't know. I can't answer that question. I guess he said some sort of based in red-pilled things while pretending to run for a GOP presidential primary nomination in fake primaries, contesting in some sense Donald Trump, never directly, occasionally like trying to draw a distinction between himself and Trump, but whatever. Certainly projecting the notion that somehow Joe Biden was president. He had no problem saying that, and that these primaries would be legitimate, and that Donald Trump, I guess, shouldn't be the candidate to continue forward to the extent that the elections were real. And of course they weren't. He did that. He spoke at some events. He basically sounded like Barack Obama or JD Vance. And I don't know why that deserves a Senate seat. Someday, maybe someone will explain it to me. Vivek Ramaswamy was then, as JD Vance's best friend, of course, and the best friend of JD Vance's wife. They were all a troika, a threesome of very good friends at Yale, all experiencing the Yale thing together. He was chosen for DOGE, the fake the fake administrative agency under the incoming Trump administration that would tell us which branches of the federal government would have to be removed for efficiency concerns, even though none of them are really constitutional and should exist in the first place. Most of them, I should say. Not quite none of them, but most of them. So none of them, nearly none of them, should exist in the first place, all the way to and including the Department of Justice. Let's just get rid of them all. The Department of Justice, all of that is based on the FBI and all that. The Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, all of that is based on the illegitimate 14th Amendment, and all of that must be removed as well. So we were going to have another illegitimate agency spring up to tell us which illegitimate agencies need to be removed. Vivek was snubbed for his BFF JD's Senate seat by Governor Mike DeWine, who named the Lieutenant Governor, John Husted. I think it's Husted. He is going to be the new Ohio senator, we are told. And then Vivek is now expected to depart DOGE as well. He's expected soon to step away from the task force. CBS News has learned he intends to announce a campaign for Ohio governor as soon as the end of January. So Vivek Ramaswamy now wants to be, quote unquote, elected Ohio governor. Why? Again, why? Why would anyone want that? Now, maybe there's nobody better, but why would anyone want that? That's the part I don't understand. There have to be business leaders in Ohio who are better. There just have to be. I know that people are obsessed with getting young blood. Oh, we got to get these young candidates in. These people know how to appeal to young people. Well, who cares until we have real elections, okay? If we don't have real elections, saying that someone's going to appeal to young people so that we can win their votes doesn't make any sense. And hopefully one day we'll have real elections, if that's the way we need it to go. And And maybe at that point we can talk about appealing to various demographics. But how about we just appeal to everyone at the same time by doing the right thing all the time? In chat, people are mentioning that DOGE is a narrative operation. Yes, that's this guy who said that, me, on like day one. Hey, that's not a real thing. And thank you. But yes, that's the punchline here. DOGE has never been at any point a real thing. This is a narrative operation. People agreed that our government needs to be shrunk. The problem is when you have members of the technocracy, representatives of the technocracy, like a Vivek Ramaswamy, like a JD Vance, like an Elon Musk, though he is his own special situation apart from these other characters. You do have to worry if what's actually happening is that the administrative state, rather than being dismantled and removed, is just being privatized so that it can take on its own role directly with the states rather than operating as part of a sprawling administrative bureaucracy under the executive branch of the federal government. So now there will just be kind of a public-private partnership directly with states, no federal government involvement in that whatsoever, except to the extent that at the top level, regime actors, philanthropists, etc., transnational corporations, the World Economic Forum, when they're funneling money and donor money to different places and different causes, they can bypass the federal government. The federal government spending is just an accounting measure for the money that would be moving anyway. And we are in a future of more untraceable money. So all of this can just be moved around. And I believe that's probably what a lot of it is. And so this was a sales pitch in many ways to remove these organs of the federal government and for people to be cheering these things on as we just move toward greater implementation of full-on fascism, totally outside of Donald Trump's doing. And that's just something to keep an eye on. I hope I'm not right about that, okay? It's just something to keep an eye on. People close to Musk have privately undercut Ramaswamy for weeks. Gosh, why? Why? And is there really this divergence between Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy? I thought that they were like on the same page as far as the technocracy goes and as far as the podcast bros and the tech bros go. All the tech bros loved Vivek this whole time. Musk's people say that Elon was frustrated with Vivek's lack of participation in the heavy lifting, according to sources familiar with the internal dynamics. There's been friction between the incoming rank and file of DOGE staff and Ramaswamy, the sources said, and Ramaswamy has been subtly encouraged to exit. Vivek has worn out his welcome, one person close to Trump said. Again, JD Vance's child is named Vivek after Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay? So if there is a divergence here between Elon and Vivek, what else does that mean? Okay? What does that mean about JD Vance? Are JD Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy diverging? Doubtful. Vivek was still there in the background today during the televised inauguration, which was mostly just 6 different members of, what was it, 5 different benedictions. The benedictions lasted longer than Donald Trump's speech. The rabbi and then the I don't know what denomination, the black guy who was screaming at the ceiling about where freedom would be ringing from, all of that was ridiculous. That should not have happened. That was honestly embarrassing. Hey man, I don't schedule these things. Ramaswamy recently met with the Ohio sitting governor Mike DeWine about the state Senate seat left vacant by JD Vance, but DeWine announced he's appointing the lieutenant governor. Ramaswamy, who sought the nomination, was at Mar-a-Lago. During the transition, sources said he was spotted at a bar one day with Elon Musk scratching out plans for DOGE on a napkin, but the pair haven't worked closely for a while. Ramaswamy was the instigator of the H-1B visa crisis. That looked like an exposure op for people like Ramaswamy and his ilk in the tech and podcast bro community. They all came out in favor of the H-1B program. MAGA went hard after that. The public knows where MAGA stands on that. Donald Trump basically diffused the discussion with a statement released through the New York Post that may or may not have been a statement. And it went away. Trump then put out a statement about how anyone nominated to serve on the fantasy team should stop posting online about politics. And we've really not heard much from Vivek ever since. So is Vivek at the end? We can only hope. We should only be so lucky than to be so simply done with Vivek Ramaswamy. But I will not count those chickens until they are hatched. Why don't you like Vivek Ramaswamy? I thought he was one of our good guys. Well, maybe he is. Here's the thing. I don't care. He has no appeal to me. I'm an American person. This is me stating my position. You are welcome to have a different position as an American person, and we will both stay open-minded. Perhaps you will one day learn that Vivek is not your hero, and perhaps one day I will learn that I should have been nicer to Vivek Ramaswamy, and I should have trusted Vivek the whole time. I have a feeling I'm not going to do that, but if I do, all good, okay? If people want to say, oh, you're too skeptical, well, it's better that one person be too skeptical than nobody be skeptical enough, okay? I would rather err on my side of things, and you can all say that he's being dark, he's being negative, he's blackpilling us, he's not properly celebrating things. That means he's not on our team anymore. Ah, yes, I know. People love the cheerleaders. Zero contribution whatsoever beyond cheerleading. But gosh, we sure do need the cheerleaders to tell us every time that we need to cheer harder. This is the most important moment in the last 9 years. We need to cheer harder so that we can get some member of the fantasy team over the finish line. Pete Hegseth isn't going to get there without us. Yeah, he is. Okay? Yeah, he is. And here's the thing. They're public servants. Public servants. All right? We don't need to bow down before them. We don't need to grovel. We don't need to cheerlead for them. We don't need to do any of that stuff. They are going to get paid a handsome salary to go do the people's business. Okay? If they don't want to get paid that handsome salary to do the people's business, don't take the job. All right? Don't try to get more power. If you want people to grovel for you, well, then just chase power and create a group of grovelers. All right? Maybe you can become a billionaire and then you can just pay people to grovel. All right? We don't need to grovel before public servants. That is unbefitting a free and dignified people, right? We have seen a television show that informs us about who these people are, right? Most of them we don't know at all, even through the television show. We've watched them for a series of months, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. How many hours total have you spent listening to Vivek Ramaswamy? And in those hours, was it just the same speech over and over and over again that he was giving? And if it was, then did you really listen to him for 15 hours if it's just the same hour over and over again? Or have you heard him talk for 1 hour with a series of canned remarks, and then maybe he's appeared on a few podcasts, and then he rapped like Eminem at the Iowa State Fair? But otherwise, what do we have? And I'm not trying to pick on Vivek, okay? They're all like this. You don't know these people. They're strangers on television who want power, and we have a group of cheerleaders that suggest we should be groveling and cheering for them from the sidelines. Go Secretary of Health and Human Services. I mean, what are we talking about here? Grovel, grovel, grovel. Okay, what else? Let's go to this massive crisis over the weekend. What an incredibly timed crisis we have. I believe that we did some discussion of TikTok last week. I said a very, very long time ago now that TikTok would follow the Twitter model. It was DARPA technology, and we were then told that it was a private corporation. And now we are told that the U.S. government might have a piece of TikTok. That is what the latest is with Donald Trump. Donald Trump tried to ban TikTok from the App Store unless it was willing to divest and bring its data onshore in the United States so that the Chinese Communist Party could not exploit the American people through that possession and manipulation of their data. At the time, it was brought back under Oracle and Larry Ellison, Trump supporter, in 2020, okay? Was it divested then as well? Yes, probably. But instead, we were told the courts wouldn't allow it. And then last year, as part of Mike Johnson's package and all of that was being litigated, let's say in flowery language, before our illegitimate Congress last year, they did the same thing that Donald Trump did. But now they've passed it into law, and it was signed by the fake president, Joe Biden. So we have a public explanation for what Donald Trump did 4 years ago that was nonetheless paused for that duration so that we could get back to this moment now where the country would understand all of these things that had to be done without having to attach the individual issue to Donald Trump, okay? His hands are clean on both sides of this, but the story is still the story, and we'll figure it out at some point. This is how we're being told the story. We do not have to accept this explanation, of course. Okay? It happened the day before the inauguration. That's not the only thing that happened the day before the inauguration. We'll get to that in just a second. TikTok restores U.S. service after Trump says we have to save it. This is Reuters from yesterday. Okay, they show right here the TikTok notification that people got on their phone. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the U.S. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. Did TikTok go offline? Was there a change made behind the scenes that we will find out about in the future? Or was this just a wake up to everyone so that all the avid users of TikTok, the TikTok addicts out there in the world, would all understand that TikTok came down? Donald Trump is responsible for bringing TikTok back up. Therefore, if you like your TikTok, you can keep it, according to President Trump, and not according to those who were trying to take it down, which are also President Trump. TikTok began restoring its services on Sunday after President-elect Donald Trump said he would revive the app's access in the U.S. when he returns to power Monday. Frankly, we have no choice. We have to save it, Trump said at a rally on Sunday ahead of his inauguration, adding that the U.S. will seek a joint venture to restore the short video sharing app used by 170 million Americans. 170 million. How about that? In a message to users hours before the rally, TikTok said, as a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the U.S. A result of President Trump's efforts. President Trump and no one else. And TikTok let each and every one of their users know that. TikTok issued an earlier statement after users reported being able to access the Chinese-owned service's website, while the far more widely used TikTok app itself began coming back online for some users with just a few basic services. Late on Sunday, the app was unavailable for download in U.S. app stores. And so that is all coming back. Trump had earlier said he would most likely give TikTok a 90-day reprieve from the ban after he takes office, a promise TikTok cited in a notice posted to users on the app. So they want a 50%, Trump wants a 50% joint venture for the U.S. government. That's how much of TikTok the government would own. And then who knows what's going to happen after that. Maybe it is handed off to other ownership. I don't know how you can maintain that unless you're going to classify it as some kind of utility. And maybe that's what it's going to be. That is what they have talked about with Twitter at various points in time. And who knows if that's the sort of thing that we're going to see. Let's switch to a Donald Trump Truth Social post about TikTok. He, at some point over the weekend, also said, I think he said, save TikTok, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just see if I can pull that up real quickly. And I'm going to pull down Trump's speech comments from yesterday as well. We can add that in from the Capital One Arena rally. And there's, I guess, another one of those going on right now. I'm sure people are kind of flipping back and forth to the inauguration stuff. And by the way, if you see something interesting happening in the inauguration, you can let me know in the chat and I'll switch over. Snowcat operator gifted a subscription. Thank you, Snowcat. Yeah, I'm happy to switch over, but it didn't seem like there was a whole lot going on. And so I thought maybe I would find a nice little hole in the schedule this afternoon and be able to get an episode in. Let me know if I am ruining your enjoyment of the inauguration or the inauguration coverage. Donald J. Trump yesterday at 9 a.m., or maybe it was 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm asking companies not to let TikTok stay dark. I will issue an executive order on Monday to extend the period of time before the law's prohibitions take effect so that we can make a deal to protect our national security. The order will also confirm that there will be no liability for any company that helped keep TikTok from going dark before my order. Americans deserve to see our exciting inauguration on Monday, as well as other events and conversations. And so if the App Stores left it in the App Store, they would not get in trouble, is basically what he's saying. I don't know if there are other companies involved as well. Perhaps there is something with Oracle. Maybe they were going after Oracle in the background. I would like to see the United States have a 50% ownership position in a joint venture. By doing this, we will save TikTok, keep it in good hands, and allow it to stay up. And he should, I think, probably have said stay up. Intentional misspelling, unintentional misspelling. That is always the conversation. I do not know the answer. Without U.S. approval, there is no TikTok. With our approval, it is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe trillions. TikTok is worth trillions of dollars. How? They say it's the algorithm, I guess. Therefore, my initial thought is a joint venture between the current owners and or new owners, whereby the U.S. gets a 50% ownership in a joint venture set up between the U.S. and whichever purchase we so choose. Okay. And so I believe his name is Kevin O'Leary, the Shark Tank guy who is now a TV personality on CNN. He apparently is talking about a $20 billion offer on TikTok. And let's just put that on the screen just real quickly here. Kevin O'Leary puts $20 billion TikTok cash offer on table. Most interesting, complicated, crazy situation. How about that? Right now, $20 billion is on the table. Cash, O'Leary said. There's a reason that Congress put this order in front of the Supreme Court. There's a reason they ruled in favor of it. It's not worth taking the risk, he continued. And so the obvious solution is to sell it to an American syndicate as per the order. And so he wants it. Is he just the face of this offer? I think the answer would have to be yes. I cannot believe or imagine that he's in possession of $20 billion cash. As of midnight on the 19th, any service provider, that could be an Apple, it could be an Oracle, it could be a video compression technology company that's being paid as a consulting service. Any of them, to keep this thing alive, it's subject to a $5,000 a day fine times $170 million. That's over $1 billion a day, O'Leary explained. Donald Trump has already obviated the possibility of those fines being posed. Donald Trump will be making the decision soon. We don't know if an executive order can override a law from Congress. There's a case in 1937 that was used successfully, but you don't know. So as of right now, unless the company enters into an agreement to be purchased by an American syndicate and Biden, who's the executive right now, no, he's not, waves for 90 days, this thing goes dark at midnight. And this is all O'Leary talking. Who's going to take on 1 billion and 7 risks at midnight? What? Who's going to do that? What counsel would advise? This is the most interesting, complicated, crazy situation I've ever been involved in. I'm really excited about it. So let's go to Donald Trump here. We'll listen to that, and then we'll wrap up the TikTok part, and we'll keep moving. I promise we will be toward the inauguration very, very soon. And then, by the way, tonight on Badlands Media, we have Hindsight 2020, and we will be discussing on Hindsight 2020 the fake inauguration of Joe Biden on January 20th, 2021.
We have no choice. We have to save it. A lot of jobs. We don't want to give our business to China. We don't want to give our business to other people. And I said, TikTok without my approval, meaning the president's approval, because Congress gave the president the right to make a deal, do whatever he wants. And they did that a long time ago when they had a different president. They didn't know that I was going to be the president, I guess. So I said, very simply, a joint venture. So if TikTok is worth nothing, zero, without an approval, if you don't approve, they're out of business, they're worth nothing. If you do approve, they're worth like $1 trillion. They're worth some crazy number. So I said, I'll approve, but let the United States of America own 50% of TikTok. I'm approving on behalf of the United States. So they'll have a partner, the United States, and they'll have a lot of bidders, and the United States will do what we call a joint venture. And there's no risk. We're not putting up any money. All we're doing is giving them the approval, without which they don't have anything. So I don't know. It sounds like that works. What do you think? Good? I think so. So whether you like TikTok or not, we're going to make a lot of money.
So whether you like TikTok or not, we're going to make a lot of money. How about that? So Kevin O'Leary puts up the that $20 billion offer. And it's funny because that's how much. I'm going to back this up just because we haven't done that in quite a while, though we've been talking about this a bit. So Jeff Yass this is Perplexity. Just a quick summary here. Jeff Yass, co-founder of Susquehanna International Group, holds a significant stake in ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok. His personal share in ByteDance is 7%, valued at approximately $21 billion. Susquehanna International Group, the firm Yass co-founded, owns a 15% stake in ByteDance. Yass's investment in ByteDance dates back to 2012, long before TikTok's creation and its merger with Musical.ly, not familiar with that app. As TikTok's popularity exploded, so did the value of Susquehanna's investment. The potential U.S. ban on TikTok poses a significant threat to Yass's investment. Does Yass have money in DJT? So the money comes out of TMTG, and there we have 2% of DWAC. So Yass, in both of these social media organizations, Donald Trump's which he has called many times the real voice of America. I'm very interested to see what will happen with DJT and with Truth Social. It's interesting today, especially because today is MLK Day, which makes it a federal national bank holiday. So the markets are closed. I'm very, very interested to see what happens with Truth Social tomorrow. And I'm very interested to see what happens with any potential sale of TikTok, knowing that all of this has now been in process for well over 4 years. Finally coming to a head the day before the inauguration of the next Trump term, his reemergence as the publicly recognized President of the United States of America. And it is about damn time, because having to go through the disgrace of being represented by a fake president and hearing a bunch of truly deranged communists talk about how crazy we were for admitting the obvious, that part wasn't so fun. Lara Trump spoke yesterday at that same Capital One Arena rally. And I got to say, I'm none too thrilled with her appearance. And I can't imagine many people would be, because, as I was just mentioning, the insult and disgrace and indignity of dealing with the fake president for the last 4 years, we are still dealing with this particular disgrace right now. And it's unfortunate that this is the sort of thing coming from the mouth of Lara Trump.
I made promises all over this country when I went and spoke, and I said, you're not going to cheat in this election. And they got upset when I said something around the lines of, if you are a person who wants to cheat in our election, we will find you, we will track you down, and we will prosecute you to the full extent of the law. So I said it louder next time. And this was a free, fair, and transparent election. And if there's one thing I am proud of, it's that we restored the American people's faith in our electoral system this election in 2024. We didn't do it alone. I see someone directly in front of me, Scott Pressler, who helped on that front as well.
We love you, Scott.
But thank you, guys. This has been the honor of all of our lifetimes, to be here and fight alongside of all of you to save this country. The dawn of the golden era of America is tomorrow, right here, starting in Washington, D.C. God bless you guys. We love you. And we.
Okay. So we restored America's faith in our elections. Did they do that? No. Or maybe the answer is yes, because for a big portion of the middle of this country, a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of Republicans out there probably said, well, Trump's won, so I guess that our elections are okay. They can't be too bad if Trump was able to win one. They can't be too stolen, except they are stolen. And you can see that evidence all over the country just with a cursory glance at election results in places like North Carolina and Arizona. And so we have Lara Trump saying that they've restored Americans' faith in elections. That is not a good thing to have restored. It's not good to restore people's faith in a process that is obviously corrupted, like irredeemably corrupted. And that's what the election process remains to this day. It's not more valid than it was 4 years ago. Donald Trump did not need to win an election to be publicly recognized as American president again. All right. And there's not anybody who did win an election. An election wasn't held. A fake election was held. The people running in the elections know that they are fake. They know that they are rigged. The people voting in the elections know that they are fake. They know that they are rigged. Okay. And the people who operate the machinery and system of elections know that elections are fake and that elections are rigged. We can look at, from the globalist level, how countries are usurped and overthrown, and understand that elections are not how leaders of nations are determined. So, no, the faith in elections has not been restored. And to the extent that it has been restored, That is its own separate atrocity. Okay? So there's nothing good about saying this, and you don't have to pretend that it is good just because that's Lara Trump saying it. It is unfortunate that Lara Trump is saying that. Okay? It is unfortunate that we have been told Scott Pressler's voter registration and ballot chasing operation is a good part of our election system when that is a strengthening and a support of the regime's election system. Every bit of that is entirely unacceptable and should be unacceptable to the American people. And, you know, if we're going to say that that becomes acceptable because someone with the last name of Trump is saying it, we're going to go right back down the same path. Okay? I don't want to do that. And I don't think Donald Trump wants us to do that. There's no American that has a responsibility to accept that our fake elections are real just because they're telling us that American faith has been restored in our elections. Zero faith in our elections. Our elections are not deserving of any faith. Elections are not even the stuff that could deserve faith. Okay? You don't place faith in a process that only requires counting. If you can't count properly, why would anyone have faith in the process? And they can't count properly. And they don't count. And if they counted and counted properly, it still wouldn't be how leaders of nations are determined. Okay? So the idea that a counting process should require faith is already a monumental mistake. Okay? Zero faith in elections. You don't need faith in elections. If elections are legitimate, they should be able to prove their own legitimacy in an honest, open, and checkable fashion. And they don't do that. They never do that. They can't do that, which is why no one's allowed to check. And no one's going to be allowed to check this time around either. It's not like somebody's going to be able to go and verify that all of Donald Trump's votes are real or that all of Kamala Harris's votes are real. All right? And again, Donald Trump has the public mandate. He talked about it in his speech again today. So Donald Trump's legitimacy is not what's in question here. It's everyone else. And none of them have any legitimacy. But we are pretending. We are still pretending. And why are we still pretending? That's the question that must be asked. At what point does the pretending end? And we can hope that this is that point. I really do hope that this is the point, today is the point where the pretending can end. And I'm optimistic about that. I don't want to have to keep having the same conversation for the next 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years. And I don't think we'll have to have it that long. It could go till Memorial Day of this year. Donald Trump has said many times that the 250th birthday party of America begins Memorial Day of this year. And maybe it'll begin a few weeks earlier or a few weeks later. Maybe Flag Day, the anniversary of the Continental Army forming in 1775. Maybe it'll be that. Maybe it'll be Patriots Day in April. Maybe it'll be Memorial Day. But somewhere around that time, maybe we will be fully out of this period. I feel like we're still in some sort of transitional period, and maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm being a little bit too cautious. Maybe today deserves more celebration. But if we're being told that elections are good now and that Americans' faith has been restored, and that's a good thing that we should be happy about, then I'm going to continue to worry very much, and worry particularly about what is happening closer and closer to that inner circle, if this is what we are getting. There's nothing good about that statement. Nothing good whatsoever about that statement. This is CNN today, but also kind of yesterday. Biden has been on a last-minute pardoning spree to end his fake presidency with fake pardons. Everything Joe Biden has done is illegitimate and a nullity from the moment of its inception. Okay, fraud vitiates everything. This has been an illegal and unconstitutional fake presidency with no legitimate authority to have done anything as president throughout the last 4 years. And all of it, absolutely all of it, needs to be nullified in the American conscience and in our history books and books of records. Every bit of that is nullified. It's null and void. Joe Biden was never president and should never be recorded as having been president by history. Biden issues preemptive pardons for Trump critics and Biden family members. President Joe Biden on Monday issued an extraordinary slate of preemptive pardons for prominent critics of President-elect Donald Trump and members of his own family, using executive prerogative as a shield against revenge by his incoming successor, while also guaranteeing his closest relatives aren't subject to future prosecutions. Clemency for General Mark Milley, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and members of Congress who served on the committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol was announced early Monday morning. Later, minutes before Trump was to be inaugurated as the nation's 47th president, Biden also issued pardons for members of his family, his brothers, James and Frank, his sister Valerie, and their respective spouses. And if you want to know the list of their crimes, you can refer simply to the report on the Biden laptop as compiled by the Marco Polo Research Organization, who have laid it all out in excruciating detail. And you can see that it was a Biden crime family that spanned decades. The information in the report primarily goes back to the dates covered by a lot of this, which is 2014 on the stuff on the Hunter Biden laptop, but they go back in extensively into the family history of the Biden crime family. The pardons coming in the final hours of Biden's presidency amounted to a stunning flex of presidential power that is unprecedented in recent presidential history. Well, of course it's unprecedented. Joe Biden is a fake president, and all of this is for show. They serve to protect several outspoken critics of the incoming president, including former Republican Representative Liz Cheney, whom Trump has vowed retribution against. If you say so. My family has been subjected to unrelenting attacks and threats motivated solely by a desire to hurt me, the worst kind of partisan politics. Unfortunately, I have no reason to believe that these attacks will end, said Biden. So Biden was being attacked before Trump even went back in office. Who was attacking him? Well, his own people were attacking him, as we are told. Of course, Biden's not a legitimate president, so those aren't his own people. The other part of that is that Biden's not a legitimate president, so those aren't even legitimate people. Merrick Garland and the rest of them. The what we may have seen as special counsels throughout this time, Robert Hur, David Weiss, and the like, I believe were compiling evidence for what we have talked about in the past and what we will discuss in the future as Rico Grande, the Trump civil RICO lawsuit against Hillary Clinton et al., covering the deep state, Russiagate, etc. I still do think we will see all of that. Taylor Budowich, Trump's incoming deputy chief of staff for communications and personnel, said Biden's pardons will go down as the greatest attack on America's justice system in history. With the stroke of a pen, he unilaterally shielded a group of political cronies from the scales of justice. This is yet another dangerous and unreversible erosion of American norms. Unreversible, I think he means irreversible. And no, it's nothing. It's just null and void. Absolutely nothing. Thank you for delivering the proper message, though. Of course, obviously he's putting out a message. In a statement to CNN, Milley said he and his family were deeply grateful for Biden's action. After 43 years of faithful service in uniform to our nation, protecting and defending the Constitution, I do not wish to spend whatever remaining time the Lord grants me fighting those who unjustly might seek retribution for perceived slights, Milley said. I do not want to put my family, my friends, and those with whom I served through the resulting distraction, expense, and anxiety. Milley portraying himself as a victim. We will see what the ultimate truth of Mark Milley is in the future, or perhaps we won't, but a victim he is not. If the official story is to be believed, Milley was subverting presidential authority by attempting to interact with his foreign counterparts, Chinese in particular, letting them know that he would hold back whatever actions Donald Trump might be willing to take as president. He was then responsible for a great deal of this cover-up. Some of the military wokeness, etc., applies to the Mark Milley story, and we will see what it all means in the future. Former Capitol Hill police officer Harry Dunn expressed his thanks to Biden for the decision. Harry Dunn was that enormous crying ogre who was, I don't know, doing photo shoots with Nancy Pelosi, and one of the stars of the January 6th very violent insurrection operation, and then, of course, the January 6th sham illegitimate committee in Congress. I'm eternally grateful to President Joe Biden, not just for this preemptive pardon, but for his leadership and service to the nation, especially over these last 4 years. I wish this pardon weren't necessary, but unfortunately, the political climate we are in now has made the need for one somewhat of a reality. I, like all of the other public servants, was just doing my job and upholding my oath, and I will always honor that. Yes, you clown. Fauci added that he was very appreciative of the preemptive pardon, though he didn't ask for it. As Biden said, we did nothing wrong, but the baseless accusations and threats are real for me and my family, Fauci said. Several former DOJ officials expressed skepticism over Biden's preemptive pardon, saying they ultimately may not be effective protective tools and could usher in a new era of presidential pardons. They might not be effective protective tools, but how? Don't they cover acts like treason? No, they don't. Aren't they real? No, they're not. They may not be effective. What are we talking about here? The recipients could now become targets of other probes, another former official said. Now they can't avoid other accountability, having to talk on some of these issues. Some of those who were issued in the last-minute pardons did not get a heads up, a person familiar told CNN. So pardons aplenty for the fake president, Joe Biden. People believe that all of these are very terrible. How is Anthony Fauci going to go free? Well, I guess we will just have to find out. Snowcat just gifted another 5 subscriptions. Well, thank you very much once again. You are too kind. Let me see. Some links dropped in here. One being comments from Howard Lutnick on the IRS. We can go ahead and check that out in just a bit. We have a Trump ceremony. I'll put this on the screen and maybe we'll just listen to a few seconds of this and just see how it is before we go ahead and continue forward. I believe some of this might be a replay from earlier. I'm fairly certain this is a replay from earlier. Trump gave a speech in what looks very much like that room. So we can check in and out. But I don't think much is happening there. That speech was interesting, by the way. Trump went a little bit more off the cuff than he went in his primary inauguration address. And it was a great inauguration address. We're going to go through that in just a minute. Let's also go here because, as you can see, the Badlands Media shirt today, kind of a little a victory lap last night. See, I went to bed so that I was like nice and well rested for this big day today, and after I began getting some Z's and sawing some logs. John and Patrick were texting me, hey, man, we got to go live right now. And this morning I woke up to such wonderful news from my good friends and Devolution Power Hour cohort. John Harold last night on X, formerly Twitter, on the eve of Trump's inauguration, Joe Biden issues a partial revocation of Executive Order 13961. For those who don't know, EO 13961 is what I call the Devo Executive Order, or Devo. We kind of say it both ways. The most significant EO from the Devolution series, Devolution phase over, okay? So the fake President Joe Biden, in the evening last night, hours, I don't know, I guess John posted it at 11 Eastern, 10 Eastern, something like that. So 14 hours or so prior to the end of Joe Biden's vacant, illegitimate term as president, he passes a partial revocation of Executive Order 13961, essentially signaling the end of the devolution phase. John wrote in a second post, the devolution series put forth evidence indicating Trump initiated some form of continuity plan before leaving office. One of the biggest proofs was EO 13961. Tonight's revocation serve as a major hat tip signifying the end of phase 3. Tomorrow, reconstitution begins. Mind blown. So this is the diagram, continuity of operations, phases and implementation. Phase 1, readiness and preparedness. Then we go into the event and threat phase. This would have happened sometime there in 2020, maybe earlier on. Donald Trump continuously shows that chart. He showed it again in his speech yesterday, I'm told, though I did not watch the whole speech, pointing to late March or early April, potentially April Fool's Day of 2020. And he continues to say that that is when his term ended. That might have been when the devolution process began, as power was devolved from the federal constitution to its constituent agencies to create this backstopping, and down to the states to take care of, the rest of their responsibilities that the federal government, through its usurpation of the last 160 years, and some say much longer, would have usurped state power and taken that power on for themselves. The devolution of that power back to the states could have potentially occurred then as well, or perhaps it was during the insurrection of November 3rd, 2020, as Donald Trump has often said, perhaps the invasion of the invisible enemy. He said many times throughout COVID, he was a wartime president. So, there's some discussion around when that event and threat began and when it was first acted upon. But that's the activation of the devolution process. Then we have the continuity operations stretching there throughout phase 3, which would have been this fake and illegitimate Biden term. And now Biden himself, at the very, very end of that fake and illegitimate term, has officially, quote unquote, ended the continuity of operations part of the devolution process. And now Donald Trump's phase 4, the beginning of the reconstitution phase, starts today. So, is that confirmation of devolution? If you're going to say no, I genuinely don't know how. Okay? And of course, there will be people saying no. Devolution has had a series of haters, many of those people trying to call our patriotism into question. We're talking about how our elections are fake and Biden is a fake president, and there is clearly something else going on behind the scenes. We are the only people who analyzed the events of the last 4 years through this, okay? Through our elections being fake and what it actually means that our country had been usurped and that usurpation had been thwarted by Donald Trump and those around him. Okay. And that thwarting, that process that is now reaching its close as we re-enter the reconstituted, hopefully, constitutional republic of the United States of America under Donald Trump, however long this reconstitution phase lasts. And this phase right here might be 3 weeks or 3 months or 4 months, or might go on through the whole term. I don't know. Okay. It's not about predicting the future. It's about understanding the demarcation of these phases, because it allows us to understand what has happened over the last few years. And besides this podcast and Badlands Media, no one else has done it. All right. I wish others had done it. Bannon's the only one who is on track the entire time. I wish others had done it, because then we would have a body of knowledge much larger than the body of knowledge we have compiled with the Badlands community, with the community that follows my podcast as we do this work separately sometimes. But no one else has analyzed politics through the true degree of fakeness of what we have seen over these past 4 years. People coming up with constant conspiracy theories, ridiculous explanations about what's actually happening. Katie Hobbs, the governor of Arizona, Senator John Fetterman, the paragliding go-kart event, okay? The ridiculousness, the ghost of Kyiv, the stuff that we've seen over these last 4 years. The effeminate Afghan boy running down past the plane in Kabul. Oh, I'm escaping. It's the last flight out. Give me a break. It's also silly, okay? If this is not confirmation of devolution, I don't know what it is. It is being put out there as an information operation by the fake president. Virtually no one's going to recognize that this thing happened besides those of us on this side of the fence. And if we are still going to go along claiming that our elections are real and legitimate, and that they've all been fixed, and that all the people who are taking credit for winning that 2024 election, the New York Times, of course, gave it to Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk in Turning Point USA, all of them totally happy to take credit for Donald Trump's win. Charlie Kirk speaking at the Capital One Arena event today, talking about how they had energized American youth to become the most conservative generation. Give me a break. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, thought I was going to sneeze. I still might. The reconstitution phase, I believe, has begun, and it's very important to recognize that. John and Patrick went live last night for Devolution Power Hour. If you want to hear a more in-depth discussion of that revocation of part of Executive Order 13961, I would suggest going to Badlands Media on Rumble. You can find a special Devolution Power Hour from last night, January 19th, and watch John and Patrick discuss that directly. Burning Bright even joins them at one point. But yeah, I mean, how much more conclusive can you get? I don't know any other explanation for that. And though I haven't checked since this morning, but let's see if there is anything else. I'll check Perplexity right now. There was an interesting Reddit. In fact, I'll pull that up as well. I sent this to John this morning. Trump is walking around through the halls of somewhere right now, so I don't believe that we're missing anything in the inauguration show. Why did Joe Biden partially revoke Executive Order 13961? Let us ask the machine. Perplexity will tell us. By the way, there's talk of a Perplexity play on TikTok. So wouldn't that be interesting? What is Perplexity's status? I'm still waiting today to hear anything from or about uncensored.ai. Haven't seen it today. I signed up for the early mailing list. If anyone out there has gotten an email today, I would love to know about it. Here we are on Perplexity. Biden partially revoked EO 13961 to modify the governance and integration of federal mission resilience. This action suggests a shift in policy focus away from the specific strategies for federal mission resilience outlined in the original order. Okay. Appears to alter the structure and priorities set by the Trump administration regarding the continuity of government operations and national security preparedness. The modification also includes amendments to align the remaining sections with a new national continuity policy as referenced in the executive order. This adjustment likely reflects the Biden administration's updated approach to ensuring the continuity of essential government functions and national security. Okay? So they changed what the Trump administration, number one, had set up in that transition period between the fake election of 2020 and the fake inauguration of Joe Biden on January 20th, 2021. In that period, that's the, what we have called the devolution period at various times. I think there's also an argument, as I was just mentioning, that it would extend longer than that from that moment on the chart that Trump keeps referring to at his various speeches, including both speeches in Butler, the chart that saved Trump's life. Changing the continuity of government. You will hear, if you watch John and Patrick's discussion, the example that I proposed many months ago about the whole devolution thing being like putting a baby, in a playpen. Okay? You're inside that playpen. You can walk around. You can fall over. You can get up. You can lay down. You can play with toys. You can throw toys out of the playpen. You can try to pull things from outside the playpen back into the playpen, but you can't get out of the playpen. No matter what you do, you're in there. Okay? And so that's what the situation with Joe Biden was. Perhaps there was a level of control that the people around Joe Biden had in that kind of secondary layer, the false reality layer of the American government, the administrative and bureaucratic state. Maybe there was some way in. Joe Biden was the public face of that, or maybe there wasn't. Okay. John referred to the discussion Donald Trump had with Glenn Beck a number of months ago on the Glenn Beck show, where he talked about how there was a committee running things rather than Joe Biden. This executive order from Biden addresses exactly that committee. It is also worthy of note that, as you will see right here, once again, 404, page not found, that Joe Biden executive order of last night is not living where it used to live. Now, is it living somewhere else? It's totally possible. But I don't know where that is right now. Maybe someone will clarify. Here is that Reddit listing that goes through some of the revisions and changes in this partial revocation. Okay, so they strike out all the parts that are deleted. Policy. Big parts of it gone. Section 3 of 618 is hereby revoked. Restricted Principles Committee, described in Section 3 of the National Security Memorandum of January 19th, 2025 on the National Continuity Policy. And this author, who goes by Inflatable Yacht, seems to be very familiar with devolution theory. A restricted principles committee will be declared. They will be given certain national security and emergency powers to coordinate the planning for and provision of NSEP communications for the federal government in case of a national emergency or constitutional crisis. We can all speculate on why the fake president saw a need to make this change the night before Trump's inauguration, especially considering Trump has declared that he will undo all Biden EOs. I believe a national emergency will be declared, and this new committee will oversee all federal government communications. Continuity of operations is a United States federal government initiative required by U.S. Presidential Policy Directive 40, PPD 40, to ensure that agencies are able to continue to performance of essential functions under a broad range of circumstances. And it continues on. So Joe Biden gave us the clearest possible signal that devolution has been happening in the way outlined and described by the great John Harold, a.k.a. Patel Patriot, my good friend and, colleague, associate, one of the best researchers I know, and also a hell of a funny guy, and a guy I have a great deal of admiration for. I could not be happier for him getting just little nods like this, because that is, I think, how they have to be taken. I don't know how else you can take this. And until I hear a better explanation, which I do not anticipate doing, because I'm not aware of anyone else with a framework that can explain something like this, who's going to be weighing in. Maybe Kash Patel will. I would love to hear Kash Patel weigh in. I'm not sure we're going to get that. So this, by the way, on screen right here is Devolution, Part 13. You can go to devolution.link, okay? November 3rd, 2021. And this is where John discusses Executive Order 13961, Governance and Integration of Federal Mission Resilience, okay? December 7th, 2020. And he goes into the discussion of Executive Order 13961, referencing immediately the National Security Act of 1947, right? So devolution, there it is. If you're not on board with that yet, I really genuinely do not know what in the world could ever be said to convince you. And the truth is, people are going to believe it or they won't. And I think that there is more than enough information in reality that we have observed, that we have tracked consistently over 4 years now and 3 years, specifically with devolution, okay? All the way from the summer of 2021. John and I started, I was on Devolution Power Hour for the first time in August of 2021. That's 3.5 years ago now. And we've been talking about it and tracking it, mapping it onto this understanding of the world for 3.5 years. And I would put our record up against absolutely anyone on the planet analyzing our situation in modern politics. I am very confident of our work collectively, the community's work, not just me, not just Badlands, all the people out there who help us, who encourage us, who keep it going, who kind of analyze our work and let us know very angrily sometimes when they think we are getting off track. Everybody has been observing something for which we were called crazy for discussing, okay? People would say that thing is definitely not happening. You are crazy if you talk about that thing. You can't prove that thing. We are the fringe of the fringe. And here we have just an absolute key piece of evidence being dropped at the most convincing possible time. And everybody's going to see what they're going to see. And that is just how we will continue on throughout the world, right? If people are going to ultimately believe that, for instance, the 2024 election was a real election, that our elections are legitimate again, that's what the future will record, okay? Is it real? Is it legitimate? No. And if we win that argument, which we will, the future will record it that way. Donald Trump does not require our help in making him legitimate. He is legitimate. He's got the public mandate. It is recognized by everyone. Those in the seats of power, the average American person, everyone understands that Donald Trump is the American president. It is not like 2020, where well over half the country knew that something was spectacularly wrong, and that it was clear that half the country did not think of the president as legitimate. If half the country does not believe the government is legitimate, it's not legitimate. Okay? That's all that's required. Courts do not have to agree with the people because the people are the final authority, not the courts. And, we might have to fix our elections within the states rather than anything that could come from the federal government level. If this is how we're going to go forward in the Lara Trump fashion, then that is where we will be, and that is where we will be stuck. And I hope that that is not where things end up, but it is possible that that is exactly where things will end up. Let's go to Donald Trump, because what a wonderful speech he gave today. And I want to play, we'll go through maybe 10 or 12 minutes of it. This will be a fast version for whoever may have missed it. Certainly faster than watching the entire thing. But I've got some timestamps and I want to hit a few subjects. So here we are. Actually, you know what? Before this, let's go ahead and just show the wonderful Donald and Melania Trump. Here they are from their arrival this morning. Melania in the hat. People have compared that hat to the Spy versus Spy hats. I thought that was a nice call. Spy versus Spy, the black hats and white hats. Let me see if I can pull that up quickly. Yes, I can. Excellent. Many people are, of course, fans of the old cartoons, maybe from Mad Magazine. Someone this morning said, I don't recall it from there, but I do recall it from my childhood. Melania looking amazing, I think, in that hat. And it kind of covers her eyes. Very cool. It's going to be iconic. That's going to be one of those forever pictures. She is certainly more of an icon than Jackie Onassis Kennedy, and will go down the same way, or that way, I should say, as a bigger icon, I believe. And, without any insult, I think I can say deservedly so. This is Spy versus Spy. So this would have been Melania's hat over here. Is that her outfit of the day? Hey. If that's what you want it to be, then that's what it is. Let's go to Trump's speech here. He breaks right in talking about how this is the golden age in America.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end. And our top priority will be to create a nation that is proud, prosperous, and free. America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country. Sunlight is pouring over the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America. As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place, and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government. Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
All right, so as soon as I turned that clip back on, I was made aware that I was muted throughout that entire segment there in the middle. I'm so angry right now at myself. Apologies, everybody. I was talking about how Donald Trump's enemies were right there in the room and how they were representative of such a small minority in that room and representative of such a small minority of the country who is still standing there angry at, or sitting there, I should say, still angry at Donald Trump, despite the victory, despite the return to stability that he has brought back into this world. I talked about over these last few months, however much of the country was behind Donald Trump during the fake election in November, much more of the country is behind him now as they see his return to public recognition as the president of the United States of America, as a stabilizing force, not only in America, but around the world. We saw over the weekend the display of hostages being returned to Israel from Hamas. All of that a result of Donald Trump and saying there's going to be hell to pay if you don't get this deal done by the time the 20th rolls around. The deal was done. Of course, the deal was done from up high. That's essentially a construction project there, building out the Ben Gurion Canal as the state of Palestine becomes recognized in the world. Obviously, it's already recognized by the United Nations. It's already recognized by Donald Trump. It's just a fact of life now. We are seeing the removal of the global regime from these proxy states. We can hope that that's true of Israel. There is an Israeli people there now. It's not the biblical Israel, okay? It's whatever good twin element is there from the creation of this global regime proxy state. But there still is, to that extent, an Israeli people there now. And if there's going to be an Israeli state, then so be it. But that's clearly not the only thing that's going to be there. I mentioned the same thing. Hong Kong, Taiwan, Ukraine, Guyana. We see this pattern repeating. Donald Trump now says he believes he was saved by God to make America great again. Perhaps that's true. Assassination event aside, it is clearly true that Donald Trump has probably survived a long string of assassination attempts over the last nearly 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in June. I think June or July, but I think June of 2015 was when he came down the escalator. And so we're coming up on 10 years now of Donald Trump in private life in this position. So apologies, obviously, on my mutedness a few minutes ago. Loving what Donald Trump is saying here. Again, he mentions the public mandate. Again, he mentions the betrayals of the country. And who is he talking about? He's talking about these people behind him and to the left. You see them here. We were told that they were not, many of them, supposed to come, but we have Kamala, and we have Hillary and Bill, and we have the weird Doug Emhoff. We were told he was the new sex symbol of America. Apparently that was not very long-lived. Joe Biden, the fake president, Jill behind him in revolutionary purple, oddly enough. And we had Barack without Big Mike over here. Of course, we have JD, we have Vivek, we have Elon and the tech bros, we have Bezos and Zuckerberg and Sundar Pichai back there, kind of the JD Vance wing of Trump supporters. And then we have Elon and Melania and Susie Wiles here in the white. But he's talking to, when he talks about the betrayals to the country, he's talking about the people right there to his left, sitting down during all the applause lines that the rest of the country, of course, was all about. All right. Apologies once again. Thank you guys for the sirens. Maybe one day I will be better at not destroying myself with the mute feature while these videos are playing. Let us skip ahead once again to Donald Trump reminding the country that no longer are we going to forget about our greatest priorities.
National unity is now returning to America, and confidence and pride is soaring like never before. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. We will not forget our country. We will not forget our Constitution. And we will not forget our God. Can't do that. Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First,
the revolution of common sense. It is all about common sense, and it really can be all about common sense. Read the words in the Constitution. Read the words of the founders, all the founders, not just the ones that the television and our history books highlight. And we can quickly return to those principles. And the first and primary thing about those principles that we need to return to immediately is the decentralization of the powers our federal government has assumed. I hope that was done in that process, as I mentioned earlier, in the spring of 2020. Devolving power to the states, devolving power from various federal agencies, and then also to various organs of the government, primarily the military and whatever other organizations need to be left in place for that continuity operation to have brought us through these last 4 years. There's one other part I want to skip back to it, actually. Get back to where Donald Trump talked about Liberation Day.
That is why each day under our administration of American patriots, we will be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day.
Now, it remains to be seen what he will ultimately mean by that. And we're going to come back to maybe one possibility there. But in fact, let's depart to that possibility right now. So if you ask me, I would say that slavery in America never ended. And we have a different kind of slavery now, a financial slavery where we have this global regime and its bankers running this country. And the country has been systematically sold off to those bankers over the course of the last 250 years. And much of that happening in that Civil War and Reconstruction period. And then again, around World War I, again around World War II, Civil Rights era, and then 1971. And throughout those times, we give more and more of our rights and our founding principles and all of that away to the global regime. So being liberated from the control of that global regime, from their financial control, from the control of the sprawling and totalitarian federal government bureaucracy, okay, all of that, being liberated from that, the return to a constitutional republic under Donald Trump, I think that that is what he means there. I hope that is what he means there. Let's pause on the inauguration speech for a moment. Howard Lutnick was speaking today at the Capital One Arena event, and somebody told me in the chat, I can't remember who, to give this clip a look because apparently he has talked about the end of that era in a financial sense.
At the start of the 20th century, America was the richest country on earth. And we defended our workers from unfair trade policies with tariffs. And we only made money. We had no income tax. All we did is charge other countries and foreign companies, if they wanted to sell to America, you had to pay for entry. Okay, so imagine this. The U.S. government had no income tax. Americans got to keep all their hard-earned money, and foreigners paid the price. So now what's happened? We have the Internal Revenue Service. That means charge us internally. Now imagine politicians who can't even balance their own checkbook, taking our money, and what do they do every year? Let's just take more, let's just take more, let's just take more. So this is how Donald Trump is going to end it and fix it. Last week, he announced that we're going to return America to greatness by creating, and today is its birthday, the External Revenue Service. So if you're always wondering, is some bureaucrat going to cut your benefits? Not under Donald Trump. Not under Donald Trump. It means foreign companies are going to pay if they want to come and sell products to the wealthiest country on earth. And if they want to compete with American workers, then let's just not tax our American workers.
So that's what I think he means. That's one of the, that's as good a liberation as you could possibly want. And it's not just the taxes. I want to be clear about that. It's not just the taxes. It's the Fed and the IRS. That is the representative of the global regime bankers in the United States. We've all heard throughout our lives, the Fed and the IRS are not part of the U.S. federal government. The idea is Donald Trump is bringing that under Treasury. The Fed is coming back under the Treasury. And then the Internal Revenue Service will be changed into the External Revenue Service. And with that, the end of federal income taxes, as I've been saying for years. And we did an episode on this last June called Read My Lips, No Taxes. That was when Trump began announcing the end of taxes on tips, the end of taxes on Social Security, and what was the other thing? The end of taxes on overtime. There would be no federal income taxes. There is no basis for the federal income tax. There's no constitutional basis. 16th Amendment is just as illegitimate as the other ones, okay? So should have never been any federal income tax in the first place. The end of federal income tax is in sight, and it is going to be replaced with tariffs. Tariffs will fund the government to whatever extent the government needs to be funded, and if it can't, well, then the government just gets smaller, and it goes down to the states, which is what it was supposed to be the entire time. The president was supposed to call together the militias of the several states, and that would be our army, not a standing army that the federal government has to fund with taxpayer money. It was going to be militias in each state. The people of the country were going to be part of the militias, and then the president would eventually direct that militia for the preservation of the United States and its territorial integrity and sovereignty. That's what the goal was. That's what it's supposed to be for. That's what it can be for again in the future, which is why we don't need the federal income tax and why we don't need this sprawling federal government. And hopefully we are seeing the end of that. So let's return to the Donald Trump speech. And let me see where I am going to cue us up. This part is probably the hardest part for Matt Walsh and the crew over at the Daily Weimar.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
So Donald Trump has announced that the government now knows who has the wee-wees and who has the hoo-has, and we will never again forget who has the wee-wees and who has the hoo-has. It is important that we always know. I'm going to speed this up just a bit. Okay, so here is Trump's big closing, and I thought that this was fantastic, and I imagine that all of you will agree with me. So let's watch the president close this out.
If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America's promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We are going to win like never before. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So we will remain a free, sovereign, and independent nation. He said, our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way. Because we are Americans, the future is ours, and the golden age, and our golden age has just begun. So, you know, for people who say that Donald Trump is not eloquent and does not give good, inspiring speeches, people have a problem with his voice and his cadence, and maybe they think that he doesn't sound, you know, cultured enough or smart enough. And it's funny because it's always people who aren't particularly brilliant or cultured, the kind of people who wear 2 masks in their car and believe that Joe Biden received 81 million votes. Those sorts of people believe that Donald Trump is not cultured, not well-spoken, not smart. And right there, that's as powerful a statement as you can make. The rhetoric is not flowery, but to call it soaring wouldn't be wrong. Those are lofty statements and goals. Okay, those are principles that matter, that express the very heart of what America is meant to be. Okay, we will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken. We're going to be free, sovereign, and independent. That means we are not going to be the enforcement arm of the global regime. We are not going to be the slave labor state of the global regime. That's the goal. That was the goal. Restore the constitutional republic, restore America as a free, sovereign, and independent nation. Donald Trump is declaring it to the world, in front of the world, and in front of the deep state just down behind him to his left. And part of the deep state behind him to his right, too. Many of those people still under the guise of being allies, and I guess we'll see how that goes. I'm not planning to let off the gas on that at all. Let's check some Rumble rants here. I saw a couple come in over while I was scrolling back. Again, apologies for messing up the sound there. It really does bother the hell out of me, and I'm sure it bothers you guys. And you're very polite about it, and thank you, but that's got to stop. E-Grab earlier, DeWine announced he's appointing the Ohio lieutenant governor to that Senate seat. Yes, I did mention that. And then Polymath, thank you. A heads up on the great muting. And my father, $20. Thank God for your common sense. Well, thank you very much for saying that. Common sense failed me with the mute button. But besides that, I think we're mostly good to go here. Donald Trump today announced in his speech, by the way, that it was going to be the Gulf of America, and Mount Denali will once again be named Mount McKinley. So those unnamings are going to be reversed. The Gulf of America sounds a lot nicer, I got to say. If you have a house on the Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico, hey, no offense, Mexico, but I would agree that Gulf of America is going to be much better. And then finally, let's just hit this before we go. This is earlier this afternoon. Fox News. They lay out the incoming Trump administration lays out the priorities. These have been printed in numerous places now, so this is just a printing of it. Make America safe again. President Trump will take bold action to secure our border and protect American communities. This includes ending Biden's catch and release policies, reinstating remain in Mexico, building the wall, ending asylum for illegal border crossers, cracking down on criminal sanctuaries, and enhancing vetting and screening of aliens. The deportation operation will address the record border crossings of criminal aliens under the prior administration. The president is suspending refugee resettlement after communities were forced to house large and unsustainable population of migrants, straining community safety and resources. The armed forces, including the National Guard, will engage in border security, which is national security, and will be employed to the border, deployed to the border to assist existing law enforcement personnel. So, are we going to hear about how Donald Trump is deploying federal troops or deploying the armed forces on American soil? We might hear about those sorts of things. Is he allowed to do that? Yes, he is, because the entire purpose of our quote-unquote military, the broader military, whether it's the militia in states, the National Guard, or if it's, the branches of our federal government military being deployed on American soil to defend America from foreign invasion is the point. And by the way, our occupying government is a foreign invasion, and what they have done over these many decades and centuries is part of that foreign invasion. So part of national security and protecting America is deploying the military where it needs to be deployed to complete that mission. President Trump will begin the process of designating cartels, including the dangerous Tren de Aragua, as foreign terrorist organizations and using the Alien Enemies Act to remove them. Trump acknowledged that again today in his speech, and we have talked about that. You can search Alien Enemies on the Substack, and I believe we can find which episodes that was discussed in particular. The Department of Justice will seek the death penalty as appropriate punishment for heinous crimes against humanity, including those who kill law enforcement officers and illegal migrants who maim and murder Americans. And we talked about how Joe Biden was clearing out the federal death row. Good, because now none of those people and the details of their circumstances can be used as a justification for why anyone who ends up on the federal death row, why the death penalty should be ignored in those cases. That whatever sad stories were remaining, all of those have been moved out. Those are gone. So if the cartels are terrorist organizations and the cartels were formerly moving drug supplies, trafficking drugs on behalf of Big Pharma or others, that would immediately include those organizations in participating with a foreign terrorist organization, opening up that picture considerably, potentially. Making America affordable again, the president will unleash American energy by ending Biden's policies of climate extremism, streamlining, permitting, and reviewing for rescission all regulations that impose undue burdens on energy production and use, including mining and processing of non-fuel minerals. Okay? All of the above energy policy, energy dominance. Trump talked about it again today. We are going to dominate the world. We have the most resources. We are going to use them. President Trump's energy actions empower consumer choice in vehicles, shower heads, toilets, washing machines, light bulbs, and dishwashers. Everybody knows about all the ridiculous lengths to which the government has gone to regulate exactly what sorts of appliances and light bulbs we can use in our homes. Those ugly and disgusting LED lights, those white lights, the awful, awful white lights. Get those out of here immediately. The low flow shower heads and washing machines, as Donald Trump has talked about for a very long time. Do we have water shortages? No. We have management problems, as always. They make resources scarce so that they can control resources and then overcharge for them while they are restricting them, creating scarcity. President Trump will declare an energy emergency and use all necessary resources to build critical infrastructure. And this is the part of the show where I can no longer speak. President Trump's energy policies will end leasing to massive wind farms that degrade our natural landscapes and fail to serve American energy consumers. The windmills were always a terrible idea. The execution and implementation has been terrible, and they produce bad results. President Trump will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. He already did that. This is another one of those things that he already did. And then we were told that Biden changed, and now it's going right back to the way it was under Donald Trump. And I noted over the weekend on Truth Social, all of these foreign countries have been happy to go along with exactly the policies that Donald Trump left in place. They are still interacting with those same policies despite this 4-year period. How did they all know that they should keep going along with Trump's policies? Did they know he was coming back? Honestly, people said, devolution is not happening. None of this is happening. Joe Biden is the president now. We still have real elections. This is not how any of it works. They told us we were crazy. Why did so many foreign countries go along with it then? How did it happen? Why didn't China take us over? Why didn't Russia take us over? It's also silly. All the foreign countries that are aligned with Donald Trump knew the entire time and went along with the Trump policies the entire time. They didn't say, oh, goody, Joe Biden is there. We're going to do what we want now. We're going to change policies to go under Joe Biden. No, regime-oriented countries went along with the fake president because that's what the regime decided to do, and the other countries did not. All agencies will take emergency measures to reduce the cost of living. Very interesting what's going to happen. We shall see. President Trump will announce the America First trade policy. Oh, hey, by the way, if the IRS is going to be removed completely and become an external revenue service, do you think they're going to go back through and figure out what federal income taxes the American people owed to them and then take those taxes? No. How's that going to happen? America will no longer be beholden to foreign organizations for our national tax policy, which punishes America's businesses. What? Foreign organizations for our national tax policy. Crazy. Drain the swamp. The president will usher a golden age for America by reforming and improving the government bureaucracy to work for the American people. He will freeze bureaucrat hiring, except in essential areas, to end the onslaught of useless and overpaid DEI activists buried into the federal workforce. He will pause burdensome and radical regulations not in effect that Biden announced. It's like they were never announced at all, huh? Biden announced all these things. People said, look what the president is doing. Look what the president is doing. Except they never went into effect, and they're never going to go into effect. So what was it? It was nothing. It was just a, look what the president is doing. Our boy Blue op. And people are going to continue pretending it was real. President Trump is announcing an unprecedented slate of executive orders for rescission. That means he's going to claw back all that money that Congress said it was going to spend. And then we're going to have a fight over the Impoundment Act, and all good. We will win that fight. Donald Trump, of course, can do this. Plenary authority in the executive branch. He does not have to enact policy just because Congress set aside money for that policy. President Trump is planning for improved accountability of government bureaucrats. The American people deserve the highest quality service from people who love our country. The president will also return federal workers to work, as only 6% of the employees currently work in person. 94%? man, I don't know about you guys, but I think 94% of federal workers should probably be lost forever under these terms. I mean, only 6% actually go to work. What are the other ones doing? Are they AI? Oh, no, I know they work from home doing very important jobs. President Trump is taking swift action to end the weaponization of government against political rivals and ordering all document retention as required by law. President Trump is also ending the unconstitutional censorship by the federal government. No longer will government employees pick and require the erasure of entirely true speech. I guess we're going to see what's entirely true speech because they still do it on Twitter. What about TikTok as owned by the government? Is Twitter owned by the government? What are we going to find out if everybody accepts 50% ownership of TikTok? What then of Twitter? If we find out the government owns 50% or all of it? On President Trump's direction, the State Department will have an America First foreign policy. We're going to bring back American values. According to the Trump administration, the president will establish male and female as biological reality and protect women from radical gender ideology, and American landmarks will be named appropriately to honor our nation's history. So Trump, day one agenda. He is also expected to sign more than 100 executive orders, and potentially that stuff has started. I am seeing that Trump is now about to speak, and I'm going to check in with you there. He's about to go on live. So I would suggest that you guys go ahead and depart over to whatever channel you want to watch Donald Trump stream that speech. You don't need to do it on mine. I'm not going to require more of your attention or leave that on this recording into perpetuity. So go on the Donald J. Trump channel, go on Badlands. I think the Badlands stream is still going, or War Room, or any of those other great outlets showing the presidential speech. I can stream, but I don't want to. You guys go ahead and watch that on other platforms. You don't have to do it here. Maybe I'll see you over on Badlands. Go head on over there. I will be back for the members, the subscribers stream on Wednesday, and then we'll probably have an episode on Friday. And then if I feel a need to add another one in there, I'll do that. And with that, I'll be back Wednesday at the same reasonable time on the same reasonable podcast network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. Joe Biden never will be and never was president. And congratulations all to making it through 4 years to the dawn of this American golden age. And I will be seeing you very soon.
Well,
what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
Ah!
And what's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max?
Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times.
It's not true. It's more true than I would perhaps prefer.
Can we stop this cruel game and allow the boy to keep one shred of dignity? For God's sakes! I can't stand to see him in all this pain! You vicious bastards! Let him move in with you! Is it so bad to see somebody happy? So just let him move in! For the love of God, let the boy move in with you! Good Lord!
And I will not let you down.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com, and for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/I'm your moderator. And I'll see you soon down on the range.